everyone. Nice to see you again. I am so pleased to welcome Lisa Ryan on our show today. Lisa is the Chief Appreciation Strategist at Grategy. She's a certified speaking professional, a certified virtual speaker, and the best-selling author of 10 books. 10 books. We're going to have to talk about some of those. While she's not doing a lot on stage speaking right now, she is doing a lot of masterclasses, virtual training courses, and webinars. She's also enjoying spending the bonus time with her husband of 24 years and her two very spoiled cats, Simba and Tinkerbell. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Ryan. Lisa, it's so great to have you here. I can't wait to speak with you a little bit more. Lisa, could you just start off telling us where you're from and a little bit about Grategy, the company?
Sure. I am actually born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I have lived in Cuyahoga County my entire life, totally by choice. I really do love Northeast Ohio. And but being a professional speaker, I used to travel a whole bunch, so it was nice to come home back to Cleveland. Right now, we're not going a whole lot of other places besides here. But Grategy was actually formed in 2010 after a successful career in sales of more than 25 years. I was speaking as part of what I did for a living. I was a corporate computer trainer, and I would do oxyacetylene safety seminars when I was in the welding industry. And then in healthcare, I would do exciting programs on hand hygiene, double gloving, latex allergies, occupational asthma. And then when that medical sales position was eliminated via group conference call, with 12 of us getting canned at the same time, on October 12th, 2010, Grategy was actually born on that day. I always wanted to be a speaker, but I really didn't know anything about the business of speaking. And looking back on it, probably starting a business in 2010 is probably just about as brilliant as starting one in 2020. but 10 years later, I'm still here and it's still good.
Wow. I would love to know, you have such a plethora of experience. What was it? There must have been, besides the thing that happened in 2012, there must have been something that made you go, oh my God, this sucks. Things need to change. And what made you want to make businesses better places? Because you obviously cared enough to not just leave it, but to go, I want to make change for more people. What was that thing?
Right. Well, it was actually in 2009, I went on a fire walk. It was actually my second fire walk. I did my first one in 1989. But when I was coming back from that fire walk, I had gone with 3 of my friends, and we were pretty jacked up about the whole thing. I mean, you can't go to a 4-day Tony Robbins seminar and not come back all jacked up. So we knew, though, that unless we took action, all of that, we just go back to where we were before. And of course, we didn't want that to happen again. So we decided to open up a Facebook thread. And every day we wrote down, people we met, experiences that we had, things we learned. And then one of my friends said, well, why don't we write down 3 things that we're grateful for? And so this was probably right around the time that, Oprah was making a big deal of gratitude journaling. I had never really had any exposure to it. And so I was just like, okay. So that's what we did. We wrote down, we shared our gratitudes every day. We held each other accountable. And that practice literally changed everything. I mean, wow. I was in medical sales at the time, and customers I hadn't talked to for months were calling me and wanting me to come in and sell them stuff. I had 2 really large accounts that seemed to close without effort, even though I'd been working them for 5 years. I noticed the difference from my husband. I mean, literally every aspect of my life changed. And so I knew that that was the message I was supposed to bring to the world, because I had kind of been noodling with the thought of becoming a speaker, while still working full time, because I was doing that as part of my business. And I wanted to get the power of gratitude out. So that was September of 2009. And I was a member of the Cleveland Coaching Federation at that time, and they were looking for speakers and they were looking for topics for the next year. I'm like, all right. So I put together a speech called Appreciation Strategies, How to Harness the Power of Gratitude in Your Coaching Business. And they said, wow, that topic sounds wonderful. We want you to be our January speaker. And I said, oh, crap, I guess I should actually write the speech. so, so that January of 2010 was my very first talk on gratitude. And it was, and I was starting to get asked to do things, a lot of chambers and different things like that. And then, somebody asked me, what I charged to speak, which was magical. And then, come October of 2010 is when I just said my medical sales position went away. And I thought my husband would be like, oh, girlfriend, you are going back to work. Because obviously it was a pretty lucrative position that I had. And starting a business and starting from ground zero. But I think what happened is Scott saw how happy I was, and it was the whole happy wife, happy life thing. And he was really my biggest cheerleader because it was a tough business to get started, but I knew that that's what I wanted. And again, this was 2010, so we weren't talking as much about gratitude, and about engagement was more what companies were looking for. And I remember one of my girlfriends kind of patted me on the arm because I was telling her all about how I was going to share gratitude strategies and bring it to business and create a culture of appreciation. And she just patted me on the arm and she said, nobody's going to pay you for that, right? And I was like, that's a good point. So I actually switched the languaging to employee engagement. And it's the exact same program, but I needed to put it in language that companies would understand.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing now is that I get hired just as much for gratitude as I do for employee engagement, because they go hand in hand. And what it's actually evolved to now is employee retention, because it's important to engage employees, but even with unemployment at the high levels that it is today, you can't afford to lose your best people.
No.
And so when it comes to just things like saying thank you, listening to your employees, implementing their ideas, all these little things that don't take a rocket scientist to understand, but you incorporate these simple ideas into the culture, and little by little, one thank you at a time is when you can change that culture.
You start to see the change. And oh my goodness, Lisa, you've touched on so many things here, like so many areas I could go to. Like, talk about empowering all the women in the world right now who are going, I don't know what the hell I'm doing right now, but I'm going to, put on my website that I can speak about this, and who are exactly in the shoes you were in. But then as soon as you were given that opportunity, it's like you just did it.
Right.
You just did it. And that's such a lesson for all people, not just women, but for everyone. Just do it. Get into action, and create this happier life that you even just said. Your husband saw that you were happy, and that was so valuable.
Yes.
What a message just that alone is to people, not to mention everything that you speak on with businesses and companies. But it's just
Right.
an amazing testimony that you have to share. So you have this presence, you have a very successful speaking business. So in the last year, somebody with your amount of creativity, obviously you have creativity, how have you pivoted? Because you're not publicly speaking. I'm sure you're doing lots of stuff online. Tell me, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
It really, it's been such an interesting year, because I had a fully booked year at the beginning, and like April and May fully booked. I had my last two programs, March 1st and March 3rd, and they were in the Bahamas and St. Petersburg, Florida. So if I would have known that COVID was hitting the next week, I would have extended my vacation. But it was like, and like you, none of us thought that this would be going on this long. So I had programs, like I knew April was pretty much done, but I was like, maybe I could still speak in Florida at the beginning of May. Nope. Maybe I can still go to Napa mid-May. Nope. And it was just like your heart being yanked out of your chest, one ventricle at a time. And it was, I mean, it was really devastating. Because at that point in the spring, what people were doing is they were basically picking up their whole event and just moving it to next year, to 2021. And then when the fall came around, again, I thought, oh, this will be done by June or July. So then the fall started, the bigger events canceled just outright. If you have like a Fab Tech where there's 40,000 people, that ain't happening. But by the fall, a lot of the associations were more likely to go virtual. They have had experience with virtual. The problem is that you have speakers that may be really good on stage, but really suck virtually. So you have this whole bunch of people that, you know, you want people to pay to go to the event, but they don't want to pay to go hear horrible speakers who are going to put up a slide and read it to you. Oh my goodness, you know? So it's been a transition, and really I've just been doing as many programs as I can. A lot of them now, thankfully, I'm getting paid to do. Some of them, you know, because again, that's a whole education process. Because as a speaker, as a keynoter, what I was used to was going to the nice resort, showing up for the sound check, and then, you know, before my program, you know, they hand me the microphone, I walk on stage. I don't have to worry about lights. I don't have to worry about tech.
Nothing.
You know, all of a sudden now I am on my own sound engineer, have all the mics, make sure the light's working. At the beginning, I used to make sure that my cat Tinkerbell didn't show up in my videos. And now 9 months later, don't care. So, I think she adds a little personality to it.
That's great.
But like today I did one for my alma mater, Cleveland State University. And, you know, they're just fun because you can just have a conversation with the camera. I did one a couple weeks ago that was so fun because I was actually an avatar, and I've never done this before. You have your little avatar, and I picked out her outfit and makeup and all this kind of stuff. And she actually walked through the grounds. She went to the meeting room. I could see all the other little avatars in the room, and their little names so above their head. And it was super cool. And then because I got to my room about 10, 15 minutes before my program began. And I found out that my avatar could dance. So I decided to have a dance party while we were there. And it was funny because there were two dances, like salsa and dance one. That was just the ones in the avatar. And I'm seeing all these other people in the audience, like break dancing and stuff. And so we basically, doing the robot, doing all this stuff. So I was learning the commands that I could type into the bar there to do all these dances.
That is too much.
We had a ball.
What program was that? That sounds
It was the company that did it is Virbella, Virbella. And their technology, their technology is just super cool. Like I've been in Remo before, which you can sit at little tables and network with the other people at your table. But like my avatar, I took her to the beach. You know, I went to the exhibit hall because they had all the exhibitors there that I could look at and talk to people. And really, just like we're talking now, I could have conversations with them. I was just dressed in like a little, you know, blue jacket and black skirt. And
that's so cool. Okay, so this like begs the question, how important is fun when you're doing these things? Not just when you're speaking, but like when you're speaking, but also just for businesses and companies to incorporate these fun, playful ideas into their
So important.
everyday,
Yeah.
their companies. Like, how important, and I would love to know what company or business that you've worked with or spoken to, and then maybe gone back to and seen the largest change. So two questions there: why and how is fun important, and what's the biggest change you've ever seen in a company that you've spoken with and witnessed the change?
Right. Well, from the fun standpoint, particularly now with Zoom, that we have so much virtual and so much remote work, you can't do the staid, boring, let me put up my PowerPoint slides and have a 1/4 inch of me in the corner there. It's really connecting with people. I mean, when I'm doing things like podcasts and interviews, or I'm doing a program, I mean, I will do the whole hair and makeup thing, but it's also a lot more casual. Like, this is not something I would necessarily wear on stage. Usually I wear like a nice funky jacket or something like
Right.
that. But we've taken it down a notch when it comes to just people feeling more comfortable. And there's been lots of times I think about it that, at the beginning when I was on Zoom calls, it was like, oh, perfect hair, perfect makeup, can't do anything about it. Now, if I'm just attending a Zoom meeting and I just got off the treadmill and I have no makeup on and my hair in a ponytail, I'm good with that. I think we've become a lot more real, and
Yeah.
people who are unwilling to be real. So if you have your kids in the background, cool, just don't do the Zoom fail that I saw, that the guy didn't know that his 3-year-old was in the back using the bathroom and not quite closing the door. Things like that. You have to be aware of your surroundings. But again, if Tinkerbell comes in the room, I'll pick her up and introduce her to the kid. At the beginning, I was like, no, she has to be out.
Yeah, yeah.
So fun and
And
I
just
spoke,
even, sorry, yeah, I was gonna say, even fun like before pandemic times. Why is that so
right.
important for companies to the authenticity, for sure? And I think
Yeah,
that fun and authenticity kind of go together, because when we're adulting, we don't think we can have fun. But
right.
I'd love to hear your take on why fun and adulting and having a very successful company and organization all go hand in hand, and where you've seen that.
Yeah, well, one of the things, like in the Gallup organization, when they look at all the things that keep employees there, one of their I think it's their 12 questions, talks about, the statement is, I have a best friend at work. Now, Gallup doesn't say I have a good friend. Gallup doesn't say I can tolerate the people that I work with. It says I have a best friend at work. And when you can build those relationships, if I have a best friend at work, it's harder for me to quit because now I'm leaving my BFF. So how do I get a best friend at work? Well, you do luncheons together. You have picnics in the parking lot. You do things off. You go bowling together. You do, with Zoom, we had one of my clients, they did a cocktail party. It was a local restaurant that actually put together, like, the client came and they dropped off the things, including the alcohol, to make an old fashioned and a gin gimlet. And
Right.
we sat in the backyard. I invited my husband. It was over the summer, but we sat in the backyard. We had everything there, and there was no business. There was some networking. We were having fun, but there was a bartender that not only taught us to make the drinks, but
Oh,
shared with us
cool.
the history of the cocktail. And the most surprising thing about that is that cocktails used to be completely rancid and nasty like gasoline until the invention of ice. It was the invention of ice that changed the cocktail world and made it a lot more consistent. So see, you learned
See,
something
all
from
the
coming
things
from
we
me.
learn, right? When we just break out and have a little bit of fun.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that we have to stop taking ourselves so darn seriously. And from the standpoint of not only having fun, but this is not the time to be all that in a bag of chips when if you're a manager, to show your vulnerability, you know, because people are struggling. The one of the things that I do when I do my virtual programs is I have a scale of 1 to 6, and I kind of do a check-in in the chat, you know, where are you? 1 is angry, fearful, neutral, hopeful, happy, and happy there's beer.
Frequency pyramid.
And even today, it ranged from 1 to 6. There was a lot more, like at the beginning, there was a lot to angry and fearfuls. And then in June, July, I was seeing a lot more neutral and hopeful moving into happy. And today it was literally across the board. There's still a lot of 1s and 2s going on, because not only are we angry that we're not able to celebrate the holidays with our loved ones like we want to, but we're also fearful because now we actually have friends and relatives who have had COVID. And so just coming from that point of understanding and reaching out on a personal level, how are you doing? How can we as an organization help you personally and set expectations as far as the job? Because chances are good that the productivity is probably not, for a lot of cases, not setting records. My husband, like I said, just got called back to work after being on furlough for 9 months. He works in a manufacturing plant. They plan production by how many people show up that day, because there's so much COVID and people dealing with COVID at home. So think about this. A year ago, you have your production schedules, everything's scheduled. We have this many people. And to look at business in a completely different frame of mind, I can put my production based on how many people I have. Do I have 20? Do I have 35?
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So I've heard you say quite a bit, actually, in the things that I've seen for you speaking, that to companies, where you are right now is a direct reflection of what you did 5 years ago. And where you will be in 5 years will be a direct reflection of what you do now.
Correct.
So and I totally agree with you. So where would you advise business owners and CEOs to invest in what to do with their companies? Because they are, like you said, on that pyramid, they're at the level 1 and 2 where there's attrition and fear and just uncertainty like galore. So what can companies do to look because 5 years down the road, we're not going to be talking about COVID anymore. You know, it'll be a distant past. And so what can they be doing right now to embrace the future, to be successful in the future, to not lose their best employees? What would you suggest?
Right. Well, they can do one thing. And that one thing is going to vary from company to company. What happens is that managers will go to a meeting, they'll go to a seminar, they'll go to a conference, and they will come back with 23 different things, because this is the magic button. We chase these shiny objects all over the place. We implement. And 2 weeks later, because it didn't work with the easy button and nothing changed overnight, that they're like, oh, that didn't work. Let's try the next shiny object. So you pick one thing. Is it the fact that you are going to make a concentrated effort to say thank you, to catch your employees in the act of doing things well? Is it going to be something that you are going to have 5-minute stand-up meetings every morning before workers start their shift? And at the beginning, so we take something like that, oh, that sounds like a great idea, let's do this. But the first week, you have people going, this is stupid, why do we have to do this? And then, but you don't keep going because you listen to the people going, this is stupid, why are we doing this? Instead of making a commitment to the one thing that is going to move your culture forward and keep on keeping on. Because what happens is, we have all these meetings, we do all this stuff when times are bad because we want to fix something. And then when times get better, we're like, oh, we don't need those meetings. Good. And then you go right back into the slop that you were before. So it's making a commitment, and then, and looking to, uh, you know, uh, keep it different enough so that it doesn't get boring, but we're just looking for that commitment and that transparency,
Mm-hmm.
and that listening to employees. So some of the things that I talk about in my keynotes, building trust with your employees, doing what you say you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
being transparent with them. Are they going to like everything you say? Absolutely not. But if they know that you're coming from a point of transparency, they're more willing to trust you. How are you investing in your employees? Because a lot of times when times are tough, personal development or professional development is the first thing to be cut, and it should be the last thing to be cut.
Absolutely.
Investing your employees, number one thing by far, because not only are you getting better employees as a result, but your employees are feeling more connected. Ooh, they value me.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody ever quit because of too much training.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, my boss just keeps sending me to all these programs, trying to make me a better
Make better.
person. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Showing appreciation. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times what managers do is they focus on what went wrong. Why didn't this work? Why didn't you get this project done?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of catching employees in the act of doing things well and being specific and getting out of that mindset of, well, what do I have to thank them for? That they get paid every Friday. No.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's if you want them to give you their blood, their sweat, their tears, it's catching them in the act of doing things well, listening to them, implementing their ideas, letting them know that they are an integral part of your organization.
Yeah.
So if you can just do little things, and again, picking one. What's the thing? Do you have to work on trust and transparency first? Cool. Once your employees
Yeah.
get that,
Yeah.
then move on to, okay, now we're going to start investing in our employees,
Yeah.
instead of bringing everything to the table at once.
Well, or
Um,
feeling overwhelmed as a CEO, thinking like, oh, how can I like transform my entire company? Oh, I've got to do this huge list of things.
right,
And actually, I find that some companies, especially tech companies, not to, get on tech companies, but they have the list of, oh, I've got beer on Fridays and I have this, and I let them schedule their own holidays, and they just have this checklist, and then they leave it like that, that kind of personality does. They just go check, check,
right.
check. Okay, good. It's done. Or our culture's healthy, and it's actually not at all. Right. So
Right. Well, I have a friend of mine that works for a company, and on paper, this company does so many things well. I mean, for St. Patrick's Day, they bring in corned beef and cabbage, and in the summer, they have a picnic with ribs. In the fall, they have a company picnic at an amusement park. They have apple pie and fall treats. And so they do so many things. And like at the amusement park, the owner of the company gets on and he thanks the employees and does all this stuff. But my friend tells me it's the everyday, never feeling appreciated, never doing anything well, never being caught in the act of doing things well. And it sucks the life out of you.
yeah,
So it's good to have your free beer and your foosball tables and all this other fancy schmancy stuff. But unless you're connecting with people on a human level, on
that's
an
right.
I see you level, it's not going to work.
That's right. That is such a great message, because yeah, some people are in this illusion that they're doing things right and wondering still why their turnover is so high or why
Yeah.
their engagement is so low.
Hmm.
Exactly. So have you ever seen a company that's hired an outside person to come in? See, where I kind of come in too is that element where that personal connection is sometimes very difficult for the CEO to establish with, just all the workers. Maybe there's 300 workers, and how does he do that? How does she do that? Um, have you ever seen it where they've hired an outside consultant to come in and start revitalizing the company culture, and been successful at that?
Yes and no, because it really depends on how willing
Hmm.
the companies are. We're just having a conversation where I can be real here, right?
Yes, yes,
'Cause-
absolutely.
okay. So what I have seen with some organizations is they feel that the act of hiring a high-priced consultant to come in and tell them what to do is enough. And the second that that consultant walks out the door, they take that little report that they have and they put it away and feel that, well, my job's done. I brought this company culture expert in.
Right.
On the other hand, I had one of my clients, a textile company that I was working with for engagement and culture, but they had also hired a dream manager. And and you think about a textile plant, I mean, it's hot. You have the people on the floor in the factory. I mean, it's just, what you think about, just hourly workers, ironing sheets, okay, and cleaning, and all this stuff. And they allowed these workers, like there was one lady that her passion was making pies. And they not only, encouraged that, but she was their go-to person for like Thanksgiving and the holidays and stuff to go to for pies. Another guy had taken Dave Ramsey's financial university or had gone through that. And and that was his passion. And they allowed him to do training inside the plant for other people to learn about finances. So instead of just looking at that worker on the line, they looked at the whole person. And over time, it completely changed their culture. They put together an employee experience team and from each department, and their goal was to find out, what do the employees want? And management gets really freaked out about that because they think it's going to be a $50 an hour raise and a new Rolls Royce for everybody in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And what they wanted is they wanted to listen to music. That was their number one thing. They just, while they were working in the plant, they wanted to listen to music. Well, when you have 200 people in the plant, that is a cacophony of sound that would not work. Rap over there, classical over there, hip hop back there. So they figured out, well, how can we do this? Well, what if the employees wore earbuds? Okay, cool. But do we really want this wire, to be caught in a machine? Okay, no. They have to take the wire and they string it down through their shirt so that it's safe. They could only have one earbud in at a time. And if somebody was coming to talk to them, out of respect, they would take that earbud out. So they figured it out, because their first inclination was, you can't listen to music in a plant. You're not going to be able to see from a safety standpoint, but that wasn't the case at all.
Right.
So we expand what we believe is possible, and we consider how it can be done, how it can be done safely. And the employees love it.
Right. Well, and it has to be a series of experiments. I feel like all companies need to get more comfortable with experimenting. I mean, and maybe this is the best time for them to do that, because we've been in so much uncertainty. People are a little more open to like, okay, well, I don't think Zoom is going to work. Nobody knew what Zoom was 2 years ago, right?
Right, exactly. And I wish I bought stock.
Right, no kidding. And I feel like now maybe company owners, it's the best time for them to transition. It's the best time for them to grow and to change and to open their minds to what the employees actually want, so that 5 years from now they can look back and go, thank God I did that in 2020 when the pandemic was going on, because I was not afraid to try something, and look what happened.
Exactly. And just being open. My other favorite client example, because it's such an off-the-wall one, in January, I was actually hired by a local church to work with their minister on presentation skills. And I was supposed to go and watch him do sermons and then, give him feedback and work together, make him be more dynamic, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, then, COVID happened. And not only were we unable to get together, but they weren't even having church. So what they did is they started doing their services on Facebook Live. And we do all of our coaching online. So now, instead of having 50 people sitting in the pews, he has 350 people all across the country tuning in on Sundays. So if I would have told this minister back in January, February, when we first started putting together this plan to work together, hey, I know what you should do. You should start doing your programs on Facebook Live, because then you'll attract a larger audience. he would have said, Lisa, that's crazy talk. Our congregants are elderly. They're not on Facebook. They're not going to like technology. They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And yet what COVID has done is forced us into looking at different ways of doing business.
Yes.
Because even when they can meet in person, because they were for a while and then they had to go back because COVID spiked in their town, but they're never going back to just in-person services.
Yeah.
It will always be hybrid. It will always be on Facebook Live. So, it's just a different way of doing business. And when people are open to that and, being willing to fail, because some of the stuff, it's not going to work.
Yes. Yeah, but that's the beauty of trying something. You don't know. And that's the fear that people, I think, have let get so deep inside them. They're like, well, I don't know if it's going to work, so I'm not going to do it. They want this guarantee that, the company's revenue is going to be X amount of dollars in 5 years. They want this guarantee that everyone's going to be happy if I try that strategy, rather than the mentality of, I don't know, why don't we try it? Like, who knew that this congregation of elderly people would now be on Facebook Live? Because you always would have said no until you take it away. And then people, they are almost forced to try something. But I hope, and I know that you will agree, I hope that this lesson of the pandemic has taught us that when we face that fear, that when we're not afraid to try something new, that's when amazing miracles can happen. Things happen that we could have never imagined. Yeah. And if we only get the reward if we take the risk.
Well, and that's such a good point, because that I was going to say that you have to set up in a culture where it's okay to fail.
Yes.
And be okay with that. What was the lesson we learned, and how can we go forward, and learn our lesson and do it better next time?
Yeah.
Too many people, if you set up a culture of fear where people are afraid to take risks because they know that unless it works perfect, I'm going to get in trouble for this.
Right.
So this gives us a lot of opportunities to just, like you said, try things, see what works, but even more so, and this kind of takes some of the burden off of management, instead of leaving it totally open to management, of asking your employees, what do you want? What technology have you heard? What life hacks have you developed lately?
All right. Well, we're getting close to the end, and I do like to do something a little bit fun with my guests before you go. Yes, I have to put my little timer on. Okay, so it's a little fast round of questions. So you get 2 minutes, and I'm just going to ask you random questions. You answer them the best of your ability as fast as you can.
Oh, cool. All right.
It's super easy.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. What's one thing you love about yourself?
My hair.
That was super fast. I love that. What's something you do differently than most people?
I always look at life with kind of in a smart alecky, sassy kind of way. I don't take things all that seriously. I work really hard, but I just have a different way of looking at life.
All right. When's the last time you had a belly laugh?
Oh boy, it was on a Zoom call with my mother and my aunt last week, and I don't even remember what we were talking about, but it was one of these things. It was so stupid. Oh, I know. I made a mushroom burley soup that was just a fart generating soup. I made a cabbage vegetable bean soup that wasn't nearly as bad as the mushroom barley bean. And so I'm telling my mother and my aunt about this, and we are laughing so hard we have tears rolling down our face, because I didn't expect the mushroom soup to cause that type of physical reaction.
Oh, you'll have to send them each one, like with the skip the dishes or whatever, just send them some soup. Okay, what song gets you up on the dance floor?
Rob Bass, It Takes Two. I'm old school.
Old school works.
and actually Snap, I Got the Power.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And last question, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for bringing more joy and gratitude into people's lives. I don't think that we are on the planet long enough to not have a good time while we're here. And I just think that, by appreciating the things that we have in life, and being okay with things, learning our lessons and all of that, that it just makes for a better way of looking at things. And and actually, I told you.
There
There
Tinkerbell, right?
Yes.
Tinkerbell.
She came in at the very last moment today. But that's what I want to be remembered for is my gratitude strategies, because it's something that gratitude is so easy for us to do. It rewires your brain, and it really just makes life a lot more joyful.
Yeah. And you are a huge testimony to that as well. So
Well,
what a great message. All right. We have been speaking with Lisa Ryan today. She is the founder of CSP, right? No.
Yep.
CSP Grategy.
Yeah.
And Lisa, could you tell us where people could find, one of these 10 books?
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, they're all over. I'm all over Amazon. There's
Okay.
actually 2 Lisa Ryans.
Oh, what's your favorite book? Tell us that one too. If they had to pick one, which would be the best one to read, especially right now?
The Upside of Downtimes, Discovering the Power of Gratitude, is my first book, and probably still my baby.
Okay.
And I think that for getting through times like that right now, that would be the book that I recommend.
Okay.
And I have 2 tips books. I have Manufacturing Engagement, which is 98 Proven Strategies to Attract and Retain Your Industry's Top Talent. And then I have the book in a different form called To Have and to Hold, which is 101 Smart Strategies to Engage Employees. So those ones, as far as just quick down and dirty, like we want to try out a lot of things, those 2 tip books are also great.
Great. Awesome.
So, and to get a hold of me,
yes,
website is lisaryanspeaks.com. And I am also all over LinkedIn, which is where we met. So I post, videos every day. There's all kinds of tips and articles and stuff on LinkedIn. So connect with me there. Just send me a note that you heard me on this show.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing all of your knowledge and expertise. It was really great to have you. I'm Rebecca Benedict. I'm your Chief Fun Officer, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.